Visualize a tiny, isolated hamlet in the mountains of southwestern China, specifically Sichuan province in the mid-60s. It is the sort of corner where power lines never reached, where dirt tracks served as highways, and where a child, one of 6 siblings, spent his youth toiling in the fields, reading by dim lantern glow, and fantasizing about a universe he had never glimpsed. That dreamer was named Arthur Liu. Fast forward to present-day Milan, Italy. His daughter stands atop the Olympic dais, the gold draped around her neck. She is the first American woman to snag individual skating gold in 24 years, but you cannot truly grasp Alissa's triumph without understanding Arthur's journey first. Because Arthur's saga is easily one of the most incredible origin tales behind any champion you will ever encounter. It all began in Mingqing, a community of barely 200 souls hidden deep within the Sichuan mountains. His dad was a government staffer. His mom worked the land, and he was just one face in a crowded house of 6 siblings. By his own admission, the grid had not even reached their village during his youth. Yet he ground away, clawed his way into a city boarding school, and secured both a bachelor's and a master's degree right there on Chinese soil. Then he hit 25, and the year 1989 arrived. If that date and location ring a bell, you already understand the gravity of the situation. Tiananmen Square, Beijing, the site of the most massive pro-democracy uprising the nation had witnessed in ages. Scholars, laborers, thinkers, tens of thousands united to defy corruption and scream for political change. The state responded with brute force. Tanks rolled. Troops fired. The official casualty count stopped in the hundreds. Outside observers tallied a much grimmer number. One the Communist Party has spent decades trying to scrub from the records. Arthur Liu was right there in the thick of it, a young idealist marching for a cause he believed in. When the Iron Fist came down, he realized the grave danger facing anyone who had dared to stand on those stones. So he fled. He made his way to California. He arrived as a refugee, rebooting his existence in a land where he barely spoke the tongue, holding a Chinese law degree that was useless here. He scraped his way through law school at the University of California, building a legal career from the ground up. He chose immigration law, reasoning that nobody could better assist newcomers in navigating a strange land than someone who had survived the journey. He built a solid, successful life. Yet a void remained, a longing he had harbored since boyhood. Even back in that dark village, he had yearned for a brood of his own. Arthur was 40 when he took a leap most would find terrifying. He was unattached, no wife, no girlfriend, but the desire for fatherhood was non-negotiable, so he improvised, utilizing anonymous donors and surrogates to welcome 5 kids. Not a singleton, 5. Alyssa led the pack, followed by Selena, and then the trio, Julia, Justin, and Joshua. He refused to wait for romance. He would not pause his dreams. He resolved to embrace fatherhood on his own schedule and by his own rules. His mom, Grandma Shu, crossed the ocean from China to California to assist, and a close friend pitched in too. There was a time when the whole crew, Arthur, his mom, the friend, and 5 little ones crammed into a solitary 1-bedroom flat in the Bay Area. 3 sets of bunks, 1 single room, everybody packed in like sardines. In 2025, Alyssa confessed to a journalist that she remembers those days with genuine warmth, saying, "Back then, we all piled into that one room. It was a blast. We would stay up way too late, climbing all over the bunks. Truthfully, I sort of miss it. Hardly the backstory folks envision for a gold medalist. No massive estate in the suburbs, no personal ice rink out back. Just 5 children stacked in bunks and a solo dad making miracles happen." When Alyssa was 5, Arthur brought her to the Oakland Ice Center. She was a dynamo, overflowing with that physical, inquisitive restlessness some kids are just born with. And here is a crucial detail. Arthur was a die-hard devotee of Michelle Kwan, the legendary icon of American skating. He figured the ice might be the perfect place for his girl to blow off steam. He did not have a clue what he was starting. Alyssa began group sessions with Laura Lepetsky, an ex-skater mentored by the great Frank Carroll. Almost instantly, it became obvious this was not your average child in a beginner's class. They bumped her up to private coaching practically overnight. It started when she was 5.5. By the time Alyssa hit 10, she had already snagged the intermediate gold at the U.S. Championships, the youngest girl to ever pull it off. By 12, she had carved her name into the record books as the youngest female to ever nail a clean triple axel in a contest. At 13, she stole the U.S. figure skating crown from veterans twice her age, shattering a record Tara Lipinski had held since 1997. She was the first American lady to execute a quadruple Lutz on the international stage. Then she became the first female skater to drop both a quad jump and a triple axel in a single routine. She was rewriting the laws of physics on the ice. Behind the scenes, her father was pouring in roughly $150,000 a year for coaching, ice time, gear, and flights. Imagine a refugee who grew up in a village without power, now spending six figures annually on ice skates. He put it simply, I spared no money, no time. But there is a chapter of Alyssa's youth she discusses with a raw honesty most pros avoid. Despite the medals, the ice wasn't always a happy place. She admits with brutal transparency that her upbringing was, to use her term, highly abnormal. At 13 and 14, she was grinding every single day. No weekends off, just work. While her peers were discovering bands and navigating crushes, she was lacing up before sunrise and stressing about the rink before passing out at night. She tried to attend the Oakland School for the Arts whenever she could squeeze it in, but as the tour schedule intensified and the absences piled up, she pivoted to homeschooling, cramming in algebra at her dad's law firm between training blocks. She secured her high school diploma at 15. Yet, skating felt less like a passion and more like a heavy obligation. She even noted in an interview that as a child, you don't truly know your own heart. That is a heavy realization. It is not about being ungrateful. She has always been thankful, but she is also realistic. She was a wonderkind suffocated by her own talent. A kid putting up numbers in a sport she hadn't fully elected to pursue. A teen shouldering the future of American figure skating before she even had a learner's permit. She punched her ticket to the Olympic squad at just 16. She competed in Beijing in 2022, surrounded by bodyguards because her father was a target of foreign espionage, but that is a whole other thriller. She returned stateside, snagged a bronze at Worlds, and then she walked away. 16 and retired. She announced on Instagram that after 11 years on the ice, she was satisfied and closing the book. She craved a taste of the real world beyond the frozen oval. The public was stunned. Fans were heartbroken, but she wasn't looking for permission. In that hiatus, she finally lived. She backpacked with buddies. She even went skiing, ironic, right? Trading skating blades for ski poles. And on that trip, a friend made a passing remark about skating that planted a seed. Meanwhile, she enrolled at UCLA to study psychology. She trekked to Everest Base Camp, 17,000 feet up, simply because she finally had the freedom to say yes to adventure. Bit by bit, the love for the sport began to thaw. She announced her return to the arena in 2024, but the vibe had shifted. This time, she called the shots, picking her tracks, designing her look, and curating the vibe. She wasn't on the ice to satisfy a requirement. She was there for the love of it. In 2025, she told 60 Minutes that she established boundaries with her dad regarding training. Arthur admitted it stung a little, but he understood and respected her autonomy. She was no longer just a vessel for her father's aspirations. She was a grown woman constructing a legacy that was entirely hers. March 2025, Boston. She struck gold, becoming the first American female world champ in 19 years. No one saw it coming. She confessed she would have been happy just cracking the top 10. Instead, she took home the crown. Then came February 19th, 2026. Milan, Italy. With her dad and 4 siblings watching the whole crew reunited, she delivered the skate of a lifetime, nailing every landing and owning the moment. When the music stopped, engulfed by her squad, she let out a scream that said everything. Now that is exactly what I am freaking talking about. 24 years. That is the sheer amount of time America spent hunting for another individual women's figure skating gold. The dry spell started with Sarah Hughes in 2002 and was finally broken by 20-year-old Elisa on a night her father, a man who fled tanks, so he could build a future, looked on from the stadium seats, tears streaming down his face as he watched his eldest child. Here is why this saga stands apart from your typical Olympic redemption script. We are not merely talking about a talented kid who possessed grit and practiced hard. It is about a bizarre, intricate sequence of miracles required to make this moment real. A man had to outrun a massacre. He had to escape. He had to rebuild from ashes in a foreign land, put himself through law school, and construct a life. He had to decide at 40 to become a single dad through science, raising kids in a one-bedroom unit with his mother's support. He had to drag his 5-year-old daughter to the rink one afternoon simply because he adored Michelle Kwan. He had to drop $150,000 annually for 10 years, betting on a vision. He had to stand firm and refuse to surrender his child's passport to a covert operative. He had to ship her off to Beijing alone, flanked by bodyguards, to compete in the very nation that tried to weaponize her against him. And she had to crash, retire, rediscover her soul, return on her terms, and achieve what no American woman had done on Olympic ice since before her birth. Every single link in that impossible chain had to remain unbroken, and miraculously, it did. That is Elisa's true backstory. That is where the gold was actually forged. Not at the Oakland Ice Center, not when she won the national title at 13, but in a mountain village in Sichuan, within a boy who dreamed of a world he was unable to see.